This weekend, the Miami Herald managed to get a list of prisoners who are already being held in this Everglades prison camp or who are slated for transfer into it. Of the number of people that they found on this list, the Herald found that a huge proportion of them have no criminal convictions at all or any pending charges in the United States. They keep saying it's the worst of the worst, but these are people with no criminal convictions and no pending charges. As the Everglades immigration prison has sprung up and filled up, elected Democratic lawmakers have been pushing hard too. They've tried to get inside to perform their oversight duties, to see what the conditions inside are like so they can tell the country what's going on there. They're not letting this place become a secret black site. A week and a half ago, it was state-level lawmakers, Florida Democrats. They were turned away at the site, so they filed a lawsuit to be allowed to get in. Before their suit could play out in court, the state ultimately invited those lawmakers in. On Saturday, 5 members of Congress and around 20 state lawmakers, Democrats and Republicans, got what Democrats are calling a sanitized tour of the site. According to Florida Congressman Maxwell Frost, who was among the Democratic members of Congress to tour the facility, these legislators were not allowed to speak directly with any of the prisoners. They were not allowed to see the medical facilities on site. Even so, what they did see sounds difficult to forget.
People are being held in cages. These cages hold 32 people per cage. There are 3 toilets in each cage for the group of 32 people, and their drinking water comes from the toilet. There's a little spigot on top of the toilet, and that's where they drink their water.
It's Congressman Frost joins us now live. Sir, thank you very much for being with us tonight. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk big picture here for a second. Why is it important to you that you get in there, for you as an elected official to see for yourself the conditions in there and for you to describe them to the public?
Well, number one, it's important because I'm one of the only people that's able to go inside that facility, walk outside of it, and deliver the truth. Say exactly what I saw and exactly what's going on. You know, when I went in and we were standing at that door, looking at the cages, looking at the hundreds of men in there, I saw myself in those cages. I saw people who were my age, people who looked exactly like me. And I thought when we were walking out of those doors of the internment camp, I thought, I'm one of the only people that looks like me and that's my age that's going to actually walk out of this place without being deported, or without being a staff member that's not allowed to really talk about what's going on in there. That's why it's so important for members of Congress to conduct oversight on these facilities. And we were some of the first people to go in there with a notebook, with a pen. I had pictures. I have a full notebook full of questions that I was looking to get answered, pictures of my constituents, information about their stories. And I'm going to be back. You know, we originally planned this as an unannounced tour. Somehow they found out about it and they ended up inviting us on the same day and time we were going to show up anyway. But we got to be clear. I don't need Ron DeSantis's permission. I don't need anybody's permission to pull up to an immigration detention center and do my job, which is to go in and conduct oversight and tell the public about what's going on.
In terms of this facility, you use the term internment camp, and I saw your colleague, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, use that same phrase. Obviously, that's very evocative language with history in this country that is difficult for a lot of people. Talk about why you think that term is appropriate. I've been struggling with that myself just as a broadcaster in terms of how to talk about these things. I mean, in technical terms, if you've got a facility that's holding people indefinitely and there's no legal process to get in there and there's no legal process to get out, that is traditionally called a concentration camp or an internment camp. And I wonder about your specificity in using that language.
Well, sure as hell, I'm not going to use what they're calling it. You know, what they're calling it is to make light of the situation. What they're calling it is to make it a giggle or something you can sell merch on. And so I encourage people, don't call it what they're calling it, you know, and everyone's using different language, different names. You know, I'm going with internment or even prison, detention center, because this isn't even a detention center, right? The thing people have to realize, too, is when an immigrant is being detained, they're being detained because they're going through the legal process of deportation. They have not been convicted of a crime. They're not serving a sentence for a crime. And so they should not be treated in this way. And to be honest, even if you're treated as even if you've been convicted of a crime in this country, you shouldn't be treated this way as well. The conditions were horrible, and it's nothing less than what I called it. And I like to be very clear about things because we have too much BS in this world and in this politics where people want to sanitize stuff. We can't sanitize what's going on in the Everglades because it's going on around the country.
Let me ask you about some breaking news that's just happened within the past hour. The Washington Post is reporting under this headline: ICE declares millions of undocumented immigrants ineligible for bond hearings. This is a new revisited, quote, revisited legal position on detention and release authorities from the Trump administration. They're saying that anybody who came into the United States illegally is no longer eligible for a bond hearing. And that might sound like a technical bit of legalese, but what they're saying is that that means millions of people who crossed the border into this country, came to this country illegally, can be arrested now and have no right to get out. It literally could mean millions of people to be incarcerated indefinitely for the duration of any of their immigration proceedings, which can take months or years. Lawyers are responding to this by saying that this could mean the incarceration of millions of immigrants who came here over the past few decades, not people who have just arrived recently. I know you may or may not have had a chance to absorb this since this news just broke, but I wanted to get your instant reaction to it.
No, I saw it, and it's a complete perversion of a law and long-standing legal standard as it relates to detention. You know, for about a century in this country, if you are an immigrant, you're someone that's undocumented and you're going through a process, maybe you've been arrested or detained, you're able to bond out, you're able to go back out in the world, continue to work, continue to be with your family as you go through the legal process. And that's been the standard for a century. In 1996, Congress passed a law that would essentially introduce this concept of mandatory detention for certain people, saying, well, judges can't give some immigrants the ability to bond out if they're a flight risk, if they've committed a crime, they have to remain detained. Now, the Trump administration is saying, well, that 1996 law applies to everyone, and it doesn't. They're completely wrong. And actually, this has already been settled in court in Washington at a detention center in Tacoma. So this will be litigated, but this points to something bigger. They want more people behind bars. They want to incarcerate more people, and they want to ethnically cleanse this country of certain types of immigrants. Because here's the thing. They're not going for every person here that's undocumented, because when I was in that internment camp in the Everglades, I didn't see any Europeans who overstayed their visa. I saw nothing but Latino men and Haitian men. And as we look at these operations going around the country, they are targeting specific types of people, and it's the type of people that look like me.
Congressman Maxwell Frost, thank you, sir. We will be right back. Stay with us.